Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to the FCS Prep Podcast, where you're experiencing real change right now. I'm your host, Dr. Keith Fairclough, and we are back, and we are on to another topic, the emotion series. It's all done. We got all the emotions in there. You can check out the playlist. So now we're on to a new topic, and today we're going to be talking about our stories. No, I'm not just talking about our autobiographies or about our life and things like that. No, I'm talking about the stories that we continuously tell ourselves that actually either keep us in the same rut that we've been in our whole life, or when we change them, take it to the next level. Right? Our stories are so important, so important. But before we get into it, you already know what you got to do. Like, comment, subscribe, share, get this out to everybody you know. Somebody is going to need this. They're going to be blessed by this. It's going to change their life. They're going to experience real change right now. I'm going to be breaking this series up a little bit. I'm not going to be doing all the interventions and things like that in this video as well. I'm probably going to break that out to maybe a couple other videos. But today we're just going to be talking about what our stories are, right? How we get our stories, and why our stories are created. The first thing, let's just get right into it, right? So the first thing is, what are our stories, right? What are stories? Stories are our combined beliefs that create our perspectives. And as we talked about before, our perspectives are the lens through which all events are filtered that create our thoughts, feelings, actions, and behaviors that reinforce whatever that belief is. And so our stories, if you think about your life story, right, and what you've experienced, you have taken that information and you have assimilated it. And I guess this actually ties into the next part as well, as how our stories are created. But so you take this information in and you take it in and you take it in and you take it in and you start assimilating it and you start adding your own beliefs to it. You start recognizing certain patterns. You start formulating it in your mind. You trying different things. You stop trying different things. But what ends up happening is usually by the time we're like 7 years old, our story is pretty much written for how life is going to go. It's for the most part, solidified by the time we're 10. I want to say like 85 to 90% of how we're going to be is solidified by 7 years old. And by 10, it's 95%. That means there's a 5% variance. But for the most part, most people, if they have not done any work, are operating off of not a 50-year-old perspective, not a 40-year-old perspective, not a 20 or a 30-year-old perspective. They're operating off the stories of a 7-year-old. I'm going to run that back for you one more time because that's crazy. Imagine this. Imagine a world that is run by 7-year-olds. And now imagine this. You got to imagine this. That's the world we live in right now. Because most people never change their story from the time they're 7 years old, which means they're running a program that is however many years old, right? They could be 50, 60, 70, and they're operating because they never changed that program. They're running off the perspective of a 7-year-old. That's the world we live in. Those same beliefs, those same feelings, that same understanding, that same perspective, it just plays out on an adult level. But you ever stop and ask yourself, man, why are these people, they seem like they're so immature. They're flipping out in public. They're arguing in Congress. They're making these silly decisions. They're worried about what other people think about them. Aren't you an adult? Shouldn't you be like that? That's because we're running off the programming of a 7-year-old. It doesn't change. It does not change. The same program in a different situation. It's the same programming, though. It's just like, I guess one of the best ways I can describe it, it's like if I have a CD, right? Or I guess we don't really, a video game CD from like back in the day, right? The 90s and, maybe early 2000s, right? Let's say I have a CD. I can put that same CD in a lot of different computers that's going to play the same game or the same music. Just because I take that CD out that's been programmed from the very beginning, from the factory, just because I take that CD out and put it in a new computer, it's not going to run a new program. So we are that CD. In the different computers, those are your different relationships. You're running the same program in your marriage, with your friends, at work, at school, in the community, in your job. You're running the exact same program. You're just taking the same CD and you're putting it in different places. And you might say, well, Keith, well, but some places are better than others. Maybe that's because your program might work a little bit better in other places. Your story might work a little bit better in other places. So for instance, let's say you get around a lot of people, especially say you have the same story, right? And the whole manosphere, red pill, I'm gonna use that as an example. So if you get around a lot of rah-rah guys, that are all about smashing women and just leaving them and all that stuff like that, and you tell your story with them, oh man, I was with this chick and yet, and I was just, this went so well. And they're gonna be like, yeah, guy, whoo, high five, yeah. It works well in that setting. Now, if you bring that same story around me, yeah, man, I just smashed this girl and I left her. I'll be like, nah, bro, that ain't right. Why would you do that? Why would you hurt her that way? See, so it's like the CD. Now, if you put that CD in some other systems, maybe they don't read that program. They don't take that story. There's some of us that keep telling us the same story over and over again of, oh, I'm just anxious, or I'm depressed, or I'm weak, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not this and I'm not that. And you ever get around that one person that's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? This does not compute. It doesn't make sense to me. Because you got this. You do this. You produce this. There's literally nothing in your way stopping you. Yeah, but you don't understand. And then you start trying to reinforce your story. So see, our story doesn't necessarily play in every single setting. But long story short, I don't want to beat a dead horse. It's the same programming we got when we were 7 years old, when we were 10 years old. And unless we do something to change it, it causes a lot of problems, a lot of issues in our life. And it's really difficult for us to be the best version of ourselves if we don't change the story. We've got to change the story. So we talk about, again, and I'll just briefly go over this, right? Because I know this part was wrapped up in the last part, but how our stories created, they're created via our interactions and our experiences, right? The interpretation of our experiences and interactions in our young life. Our interactions, and here's the thing, we start building our story from when we're infants. It doesn't start like, oh, I'm 5, now I start, or I'm 7, now I start. No, from the moment we are born, we are writing our story. Because even though babies can't talk, when they cry, when they laugh, when they play, when they grab your face, they're still communicating. It's not verbal, but they're still communicating, so their story is being written. So those parents who neglect their children, those parents who are dismiss their children or invalidate their children or love their children, are always with their children, you're writing a story. You're writing your child's story. Oh gosh, here's the crazy part. Oh man, maybe I'll leave it to the end, but I won't. The crazy part about your story by the time you're 7, most of it's not even written by you. I'm gonna run that back one more time because it just hit me as I was saying that. Most of your story by the time you're 7 is not even written by you. You actually have someone else's programming in your head. Your parents' programming is in your head. Your teacher's programming is in your head. Your friend group in your head. The government, society, TV, they're literally writing your story for you. By the time you're 7, you don't even know it, but you've been programmed by the world around you. Gosh, guys, this is crazy. And so we're running with a program that's not even ours. But that's how our stories are created. That is what happens. But from time of 0 to 7, and from 7 to 10, where our interactions and experiences with the world are used and are formulated, and we try to figure out how to operate in this world. And again, these interactions and experiences are generally from other people. Right? So when I say people are writing your story, it's because of how they treat you, how they talk to you, how they act with you, how much time they give you, how much all that, all those interactions, all your experiences, you're taking that and you're putting all the information together. And then when you put it all together, then you have your story. And your story is either, I can do anything, or I'm useless, or I'm nothing, or I'm too weak, or I'm not strong, or I'm not good enough, or have to work for love, or whatever it is. Right? Our stories, again, are our combined beliefs that shape our perspectives. And then that goes and it's essentially the program that we use to operate in this world. So that's how our stories are created, right? So why do we create stories? Why can't we just take information in and then just be very objective about it? Oh, my mom didn't pick me up, so, It's not a problem. She just didn't pick me up, right? Why can't we just do that? Because that's not how our brain operates. When it comes to story and information, it has to take it and it has to interpret it so that it's like, how do we operate in this world? That's why I can't just take it as a blank slate, because events in and of themselves, I've said it before, they have zero value outside of what they give it. It's the reason why someone could pass away and it not bother me at all, but one of my loved ones could pass away and I'll be devastated. Same event, just a human being passing away. Why does one mean something, the other one doesn't? Because there's connections, there's emotions, there's experiences, there's interpretation of those events, all types of stuff. And then you can even say someone else can come along and someone close to them could pass away, they couldn't bat an eye. Or they're actually glad about it. So in thinking about this, right, we have to understand why our stories are created, because we need to understand how to operate in the world. So it's taking all this information in our mind and it's taking in the thoughts, the feelings, with the behaviors that took place, what we tried, what they did, the different perspectives, it's the standards, all these things. Your brain's taking them in at a very young age, trying to understand this is how I operate in the world. I got to make sure I'm disconnected from my parents because they're not safe. That can be another belief. I'm not safe. The world's not safe. People aren't safe. I can't trust people, right? We create this so the brain's like, this is because we got to keep ourselves safe. That's what the brain does. We have to understand the world so we can keep ourselves safe in the world, so we know how to operate in the world. And like I always say, that programming, and I mean, not always say in the podcast, but I always say everywhere else, that programming works when we're younger. It does not work when we get older. That's why we have so many issues in our relationships, so many issues at work, so many issues. Like mental health is out of control now, right? There's so many mental health issues. It's out of control. It's out of control. Why? Because the stories don't work when we become adults. They don't. Because those same excuses don't work anymore. Those same reasons don't work anymore. Some people just don't care. Right? We have some kids that act up in school and get into trouble, and people say, when you become an adult, no one's going to put up with that foolishness. And the kid's like, whatever. And they get out there and they get arrested. They get out there, they're getting, 1 year in jail, 2 years in jail. Some are going to prison. Some even earlier than that. This is why our stories are created. Because our brain needs to understand how to operate in the world. And the best way for it to interpret the information that's coming in, to program our mind, to get everything working in sync, is to create a story. So again, I'm not going to go into the interventions. And how to, go about changing our stories. But I really want to start this series off with understanding what our stories are. And the thing is, you cannot escape your story. You cannot escape it. You have to change it. You ever wonder why you try to change sometimes, and then maybe you call it self-sabotage, you get so far, and then you do something to bring yourself back? And we call it self-sabotage. It's not self-sabotage. Again, now this I do say all the time. Your brain is your ally. It is your friend. It is here to help you. It is here to keep you alive. That's why there are no negative or positive emotions. They're either pleasant emotions or unpleasant, but it uses these things to keep you alive, to keep you safe, to help you function. So our stories are your brain's way of trying to keep us alive. That's what our stories are. Until we decide to change it. Until we decide to change it, right? We will always be reset. We will always sabotage. But again, it's not really sabotage. What it is it's bringing you back to what your story is. Our story is not, you being super successful. Our story is we're not useful. Our story isn't, we're proud to be ourselves. Our story is we have to earn love. And if we're not acting like everybody else is, we're not good enough. Your story isn't to get out there and try to change the world and change your life. Your story is to be a victim and wait to be saved. So what it does, it always resets you. Your story isn't, you're not a healthy fitness guru nut. No, we're supposed to be fat and overweight and self-deprecate. And so all your efforts come back down. Why? Because your brain's like, that's not the program. That's not the story. We need to stick to the script. But here's the other thing as well. It also works in reverse. So if you are someone who likes to be fit, guess what happened when you stop being fit, you stop working out? Your brain's like, whoa, that's not our story. That's not who we are. We're this level of fitness. Bring it back up. Your grades start to drop. Whoa, that's not the kind of student we are. comes back up. Your money starts to drop. Whoa. That's too much debt. Bring it back up. Our brain works to keep that homeostasis. And it does most of that through our story. So in order to get to that next level in life, in order to improve your relationship, in order to make more money, in order to improve your health, in order to do anything in your life, make any kind of positive steps and progress forward, you have to change your story. You've got to change your story. You will never make it if you do not change your story. And I know some people are like, well, there are these other people who are super successful and they made it and their story was the same. Was their story the same? Was their story the same? Because there are plenty of people who are filthy rich and are depressed with the same story from when they were 7 years old. There are people who have all the fame in the world and hate themselves because they have the same story when they were 7 years old. There are people who look so great on the outside, but at their home, it's a disaster. Why? Because that's the same story that was written when they were younger. There are some people that no matter how many people they date, they never feel loved because they have the same story from when they were 7 years old. So don't just look on the outside. When I say progress, when I say success, I'm not just talking about material things. God knows I'm not talking about that because there are plenty of people with material things that mean absolutely nothing. They would trade the entire world for a moment of peace. They would trade the entire world to feel loved. They would trade the entire world, everything they have, to have their family back, to have a relationship with their parents or whatever, right? So material things, that's not it. That can be part of it, but that's not it. But in any progress, in any part of our life, we got to change our story. You got to change what you believe about yourself. You got to change how you see yourself. You got to change how you operate in a certain situation. You got to change that. If you don't change that, you'll never get beyond where you are. No matter how bad you want it, you'll never get beyond it. So we are going to go into how to start identifying what our story is and changing our story. Because if you start changing your story, ultimately what's happening, you're actually changing your beliefs. You're changing the operation, the programming behind the scenes. You're changing how to operate. So we're going to get into how to do that. We're going to talk about how I statements play a role in that. And I'm not talking about I statements with communication and relationships. I'm talking about when you say like, I am this, I am that, We're talking about things like that. We're going to talk about what that looks like. We're going to be talking about how to track your different behaviors, what kind of behaviors reinforce your stories, because that's what behaviors do. Behaviors come and they reinforce whatever your story is. So if your story is, I am depressed, I'm a depressed person, or I'm an anxious person, or I'm a lazy person, or whatever your story is, I'm unlovable, your behaviors are going to play that out. Because your brain is programming you, because that's what the program is. That's what we're going to play out over and over and over again to reinforce it. You're actually going to start looking for ways to make yourself more depressed, looking for ways to make yourself more anxious, looking for ways to make yourself more overweight or whatever it is, or more successful, or more lovable, or more powerful, or more of a victim. You're actually looking for ways. Your reticular activating system is going to lock in on ways to bring whatever you believe, whatever your story is, to pass. Like I said, we'll get into all that in the next few sessions. But for now, that is our story. That's what they mean. That's how they're formulated. That's why we have them. And we are going to work to go and change them, because there's no reason for us to be stuck with the same programming that we had when we were 7 years old. It's time for us to get free. It's time for us to have the life that we want. With all that being said, guys, I love you all. I hope you all have a great, awesome, and blessed day. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Guys, we're going to change our stories and we're going to change our lives. All right. So stay tuned. More on the way. Also, let me also put this out there. I'm actually going to be dropping a lot of shorts, a lot of about communication. So stay tuned for that, so that, in case you're looking at my communication plays and like, bro, there's 2 videos there, man. Trust me, I'm going to flood that with videos and shorts that kind of give you little tidbits of information on how you as a man or you as a woman can operate in your relationship to communicate successfully, so that you guys can actually have a connection. All right. Again, love you guys. Y'all have a great, awesome, and blessed day, and I'll see y'all soon.